Welcome everyone. I'm not hiding anymore. Welcome everyone to this week in Svelte. So this is our usual appointment every week. Thanks for joining us. And I'm Paolo Ricciuti. I will be your host for today. And let's start with the usual agenda. So as usual, we will go over the changelog. We don't have any quick fact or announcement, but we do have a very exciting community showcase today, and we will go over some question and answer. And this question and answer is actually something that I think a lot of people struggled in the past, and we finally have an answer. So I'm excited to bring you these answer. Hopefully, we'll see. So let's start with the thing that we always do with the changelog. And again, thanks to this very excited and useful member of the community. I don't remember his Twitter handle, but I will check out. That provided with Svelte changelog .vercel.app. You can also visit this website if you want to be up to date with the changelog. So let's go. Let's start with the Svelte releases. As usual, we are not going over every change because Svelte 5 is in the making. As you can see, there are a lot of releases. We are at 38 release so far. And there are a lot of bug fixes, so we usually just go over the most important one. There are some stuff I took a look before, like for example, allow TypeScript to cast in bindings. It was not possible to do in bindings. Try catch deep read during inspect. Inspect is one of the newest routes where you can basically continuously logging a reactive variable. Hydrate control. A lot of those stuff is very technical, so it's not useful to go over this. Handle deep assignment to state class properties correctly. Again, those are a bunch of fixes. Something about CSS. This is also something that is kind of under the radar for the moment, but we are also getting a new not improved, but much more lightweight CSS parser for Svelte. And so obviously there are small tweaks that we need to make to adapt, basically, but they are obviously working hard on this. There were some missing type attributes for the stroke line join. This is SVG stuff, guys. And that was it for Svelte, not Svelte for release, but SvelteKit. Let's go over the changes in SvelteKit. So here also there are some bug fixes. There is something that I think it's interesting. So basically, ignore bodies sent with non-put, patch, or post request. So basically, if you're using a node adapter and there were some way to make the node server crash if you sent a body with a get request, basically, which it's not the standards say that you should not send a body with a get. And it's actually this was a fix in conventional commit. As you may know, a fix means that it's a patch release. This should not break nobody code, right? And actually it broke some code because and that's why these other fix and patch changes 4 days ago later, because the problem is that a lot of people are actually sending body with the delete request, which again in theory is not correct. You should not send a body with your delete, but some people were doing it, so it broke their code. But Svelte maintainers come to the rescue and saved the day and released the SvelteKit 2.4.3. And this, we also got a minor release, which are whenever I see a minor release, I always get a bit excited because it means some new feature. And this is actually something that I think it's very interesting because, and we can take a look at the PR here, but basically like this allow for dev, preview, or pre-render platform emulation. What does it mean? This is something, it's a discourse that is going on. Especially like this is especially important for something like Cloudflare. So the Cloudflare adapter is used to deploy your application on Cloudflare. And Cloudflare has a whole ecosystem, like it has the database, it has a bunch of stuff basically. And to access those, you should be able to do it inside the platform, event.platform. I don't know if you ever used these because, again, since this PR, this was basically only populated by the actual environment. So when you deploy your app to Cloudflare, Cloudflare will populate this event.platform with something useful. Like, for example, if I can remember correctly, the access to your DB instance and stuff like that. So it's not something that everybody uses because not every platform actually use this object, but it's something that it's present inside the event object that you get inside your hooks or load function. One of the problem with the adapter Cloudflare is that if you are using a database, for example, locally you can mock that database, but the event.platform was not there basically. So since now basically you had to kind of work around this and never access event.platform directly, always basically mock it on the read and then like try to inject your stuff in event.platform. It was kind of complicated, but with this feature they are basically opening the door to allow adapters to emulate something like that. So there is, I don't know if this is all we need or if we need something else, but I think like we are on the right track to give Cloudflare users a better user experience, which is always cool. So we have like there is some Svelte migrate changes. There is some adapter node changes, some adapter auto changes, and stuff like that. Adapter. A lot of adapter changes. Adapter changes a lot. But that's it for the changelog. So we can move to the next part of our agenda, which should be quick fact and announcement, but they are so quick that in fact they're already done. And so we can move to the next step, which is the community showcase. So please join like with a big round of applause. Henry, I will add you to the stage, which will present his library. And I think you are muted. I will unmute yourself. Okay, you're.
Hi everybody.
Which will present our his new library, which is Cells. It's called Cells. So I will leave the stage for you. So feel free to comment with question for him, because later we can have a quick Q&A if you want. So I will add your screen to the stage and I will remove myself. It's up to you.
Yeah, thanks, Paolo. So yeah, just today, so we're going to talk about Cells. So it's a new library which basically replaces the Svelte stores and adding new features. So the idea is still the same. So basically, it's functional and reactive programming mostly. So we taking away the imperative bits. You know, if you use the Svelte stores with derived, you know, you have this additional parameter when you can do something after a delay, etc., etc. So this kind of thing are taken away, and we just do purely functional definitions because it enables to make bigger apps with less bugs. So at least we hope so. So basically, it's like a spreadsheet. You have cells. Some of them are values, which you can update manually, and some of them are formulas. And once you write the formula, usually you don't change the formula much, but what you want is the formula to react and change whenever the dependent values change. And what we'll see is basically we manage a few things, and this is why we had to write a new library. And in fact, it's a lot of added features. So even if it's a few things, then it becomes much more complex from an algorithmic point of view to write. So basically, what we'll manage and we see automatically is async calls, and we'll see why. Basically, it's something which can be a bit messy currently with the stores. Undefined values as well, because when you are creating an app, usually, and when you load data asynchronously, the initial value until you get something is undefined, and you don't want to trigger a cascade of a lot of calls with undefined values because they have no meaning. That's what undefined is. You can use null if you really want to say that there's nothing. We also manage errors and pointers, because we'll see when you want to do something complex, sometimes you want pointers. So basically, it's and we can do an example. It's really close to what Svelte do. We can see this example very quickly. So when you have this repo here, so we are writing basically, and when we have async function, it works, of course, but we have to be very careful. We have to use await, then in every value that we read from these stores. And also, we have to be very careful not to forget, for instance, the await here, because if we do, basically, then it becomes not a number because it's a promise. And then, for instance, if we do here and we put it async, the double, it's commented out and say, oh, we have to comment it, then again, it's a promise. And basically, if we don't manage things well, so basically it's kind of tricky, and we wanted to automate this completely. So how does it work? So we have here a very short demo app. It's 60 lines, and there's just a few more lines, so I'm not counting the whole CSS, and we'll see why. For the image, basically what we wanted to do is, so we have an app here, we can even restart it if we want. So it uses dog CEO basically to load random dog images, and basically you can like or dislike, and if you like, it's added into your like list, and then it loads a new one, and basically if you dislike, you just load a new one. And so we wanted to have this animation, so because if I'm hitting the API too much, I can get rate limited and it becomes slower. So basically, this is a very simple use case, and I say, okay, I can like and add it into my list. And as well, what I want to do is I want to simulate a failure, like the promise reject, because let's say, oh, I have no internet, but I want to keep as much of my state as I want, and then if I want to refresh, then I still have my like list. And everything is restarted again. And we're trying to do this basically with the least amount of lines and the least amount of complexity for the developers. So let's see how it works. So basically, we just import a sheet, which is like the spreadsheet basically for the cells. And this is a constructor, this is a class. So basically we say, okay, we're building a new sheet. And most of the time we'll have this single sheet, which will be used throughout the whole app, unless you want to build a sheet for something which is completely separate. Okay, so we have this constant, the CO, doc CO URL, sorry, and basically here we have this fetch dog function, which is fetching the dog URL, and as you know, fetch is async. So here it's just the fail where we simulate basically that, okay, we have a promise that rejects, saying that no internet. That's the button I showed earlier. And here we have the getDoc URL, which is another async function, which extracts from that URL, which is an API, which gives a random image URL. So basically, it's a JSON, and the image itself is in the message. So basically, here is how we deconstruct it. And the JSON parser is async as well. And those are just the HTML and the browser platform. So basically, what we do is, okay, we create one cell, which will be reused or each time, just like a Svelte store, and which is the HTTP response of the dog API. So basically, initially, we say, okay, we start a new cell, sheet.new, and we're calling this fetchDog method. Notice here, there's no wait. Basically, what we do is this gives a promise, and we put the promise directly in the RESP, and there will be the cells automation, which basically then is responsible for waiting until the promise is fulfilled, and then basically updates the state. So same when we extract the image URL, when we call this getDoc URL function here, which is async as well, we just map it. And when we call this map, so basically this is the derived store, if you want. And here, in fact, we're mapping it. And as well, there's no async, no await. We just define basically the computation, and the computation will be done later. When we want to do sync calls, like compute the length of the URL, which is shown here, you see the URL length is 67 bytes. So basically, we just, even if the value is not yet available, because that URL is not available, basically we can just map the value and extract the length. We can extract the breed as well using string regex, basically. And here we put the likes, which is a new cell starting with an empty list. Since we manage the errors, basically the response will either be the HTTP response or an error. And the error is not thrown on purpose because this enables not to break the app when an error arises. And it's your responsibility to just show it locally. But when you're using TypeScript, of course, it's fully typed properly. And basically in TypeScript, if I share another screen, but not now, basically in VS Code or any other editor, when using TypeScript, you have type errors if you don't catch properly errors when they may arise, because you can annotate what functions can yield an error. And then, okay, if I don't have an error, then I just subscribe. So this creates a subscription. It's the standards, of course, Svelte compiler, and we have nothing to do with it. It's fully compatible. When I need to click on my like button here, and it updates the image, basically, we just likes.update, where we take the original list and push, in fact, the new URL first. This is why the last liked dog comes first. And then what we say is we fetch another dog. And that's it. It's just fire and forget. We just, so we can have this refresh button as well, which is fetching another dog, etc. And this is, I would say, extremely straightforward. What happens for the image? Basically, on the image component, you see that we pass the URL, which is itself a cell, and we pass the sheet as well. Of course, you can use Svelte context, and here this is just a small example. But basically, in a real app, you put the shit in the Svelte context, so you just do a get context and it's done. So basically, here on the image, so I export the sheet, the URL, and maybe the alt to be accessibility compliant, and the height, which is optional. And basically, I have a counter, which is another cell as well, which could be used. It's not displayed here, but why not? And as well, so here it's how we tell, for instance, that here when we let's say, and it's refreshing, and you see the spinner, and I can, as I told you, this URL can get rate limited pretty quickly. That's why it's a good example. So basically, here that's how we compute if it's changing. So basically, this is another cell which is false, but then we subscribe automatically to the URL, and we say that when we change basically the URL of the same image component because it's reused, we set again is changing to true, and the only thing that we have on the image component is on load. Then we change it back to false. So this is how the spinner is shown, and then disappears. So it's in, and here you see as well that we have something to catch error which could arise, and this is just a sample of a more advanced component in a very short demo. But the key takeaways here, it's really, there are very few changes, in fact, compared to Svelte stores, but it manages async, manage errors, and also it gives, let's say, a global graph of all the cells. So for instance, if we have, so here it's another small app, which is the to-do NGC, but with, let's say, added debugging bonus, which is basically the whole graph. So here I see I have a to-do list, which is cell 0. It doesn't mean the length is 0. It's just the ID, because every cell, in fact, has an ID. And you see that there is the length, which is derived or mapped in cells language from the to-dos, the one showing 0 item. And we'll see as well that these to-dos are sorted. We'll come to this later. And here we have some inner pointer. So this is something, some details of the implementation, which enable to allow some really purely functional features, like, for instance, undo or go back to history for a given cells. And here we'll offer two memory models, basically, either for you're able to afford the full functional graph where you can go back in time if you want, and but it takes a bit more memory. But if your memory is 100K or 200K, who cares? But if you have a lot of data, let's say 10K cells, or even no more, 100K cells, basically maybe you want to save some memory, and here we'll add some features for that. And here as well is a small loop of selected item selected. So let's say I add foo here. I'm adding bar as well. Maybe I'm getting just a bit smaller. I hope that you can all read. And see here, basically, so I have my items. I can say that the bar is done. And when it's done, it's moved down the list. And also, so we have some async functions. It was just to code. So I can't show you the code because it's in another window, but anyway, it's just the same. So basically those are async calls because there's this is the crypto API from the browser, and which is async, but it's done as I've shown earlier with the dogs, so super easily. But here you can see, for instance, what happens when the whole graph is with the different item, the item bar, the item foo, the sorted list, etc. The older sorted list, which I mentioned. And basically, for instance, I have a selection, which is a pointer. And so the selected item, which I could use to do something more. And here you see, for instance, how the selected item, in fact, is pointing to foo. Here you see the item foo and has a pointer to selected. And this enables a very easy style of programming because since we're using pointers, we can pass this cell directly to a component. Just like, for instance, here we are passing, let's say, the cell to image. Here I'm passing a cell. And if I have a pointer, I'm passing a cell as well. So you can pass a cell to a component down the line who will update it. And basically all the changes, of course, will be propagated without having to resort to dispatch and create even dispatchers, etc. Because you have a one common memory model. And if you're building more complex applications, and because this is our use case, maybe I'll get back to it later. So it's helping, in fact, quite a lot. So, and here you see when I change, you see the pointer changing. Basically, here you see it's bar who's pointing to selected, and here you see it's foo pointing to selected. And so basically, this debugging output as well can be very useful. So now in our main application, so we're a startup called OK Contract. So we're doing, in fact, complex blockchain interactions libraries, basically. And we needed this. So this is why we built it. And for instance, you can inject a debugger. So if I put debug.h, I have the help of the debugger that we have injected. And here, for instance, you see that I can debug.print a given cell, like for instance, cell 7. I hope that you can see the bottom of my screen as well. And here you see, okay, 7 is the cell is item foo. I can expand and see the whole value, which is the ID, the text, and completed. And for instance, which is not completed here in this case, you can see who is depending on foo. So we have the sorted arrays of the list. And here, for instance, you can see that the sorted array is the order here, because so bar was put first, but basically when I check bar, it goes down the list. So that's why it's sorted. And as well, it's fully reactive. And this is the kind of things which I can debug. I can as well debug.search any item. So sorry, I have to move this. Yeah. So if I'm searching for item, basically it says, oh, you have two cells, ID 7 and ID 9, which are named item something. And basically it is very easy to basically explore all the values and as they react potentially to events when you debug. And there's a few other things like you can watch for events for a given cell, etc. So basically, it's helping a lot. Just I don't know how much time do we have left, but and maybe we can go to questions afterwards. So I've just put together, in fact, one blog, which is basically describing a few problems and why we're doing this. And this was an earlier version of the dog app, but with the best dog. And basically with a few code example. And you also have here the link to in the end here to the repo, the one that I showed here, that one. Okay, and I'm even, let's post it to Hacker News. So if some of you want to vote, we can do a bit of sales news in the news section. So that's it for now. And but happy to answer any question if you have.
I was talking, but my mic was muted. So I'm joining you back on the stage. I don't think we have any question from the chat, but if any of you have some question, feel free to leave it in the chat so we can answer them. And I want to ask you something, actually. And the thing that I want to ask you is, I've seen that inside your REPL, you are doing some, for example, you are setting the value with the function call, which is what Svelte does under the hood, when you are assigning to a store. So in theory, this could be done also with the $ syntax, right? Or is there some specific thing that like it makes your set function a little bit different?
So we have the same interface as Svelte. So I think the assignment works as well, and it should work. Let's try immediately. So where do I
For
set?
example, when you click on the like button, right?
Yeah. When I click on the like button, which is where is my like button? Unclick like button. Yeah, unclick likes dot updates. And here, yeah, probably I can $resp equals fetch doc. Let's try.
Because I think this is even better, right?
Yeah, and basically, yeah, if I like, yeah, perfect, it's working. Yeah, indeed, because we use exactly we wanted to be compatible because we started initially with Svelte stores, and as our app grew and grew and grew, we outgrew the stores, so we had to redo them. So that's it. So that's why it's as one small difference though is, for instance, here when I'm using a derive function on with Svelte store. Notice that here I have the array of the different initial stores. And here the function is passed in an array as well. We don't. We directly take a function. So if you migrate, in fact, this example, I think I have it. Let me check. I have, or maybe I have another one that it's close enough. Yeah. Okay, loading. So yeah, basically here you see that it's almost the same. So I'm mapping, let's say, two cells here, but I can use a function directly. So here you notice there's no array between A and B. And we think that it's much easier because most often you have functions already defined, which are in that format somewhere in your TypeScript libraries or elsewhere. So basically you can just pass an existing function without having to put the arguments.
You will have, like, for each argument, like A will be first and B will be last, right?
Yes, of course. And we also have, in fact, the previous version. So basically, there's an extra argument, which is the previous version, which can be very useful, for instance, if you want to do state transitions and stuff like that, where you compare the new value to the last one added is the previous value of both. So, and that's it. And for
the last argument of derived store in Svelte is actually the set function. It's not something that is super known, but in a derived store, like the last argument, like after the array of stores, there is a set function that you can use to set the value of the store. So I think that's why probably they wanted to separate them. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And I also like it's very interesting how it's treating asynchronous state, because again, it's cool that you can just use async functions to retrieve states, and it will await the promises for you, basically.
Yeah, and you see, for instance, here it's working. So it's A1 or B2 with different maps. And here it's so easy. I just add a sync and it's still working. Nothing. I have to change nothing in my app. So,
do you have any you don't have a way to know if a store is actually loading, right?
oh, we do. We have so basically it works at the proxy level. So this is another feature, which is the proxy. So
Mhm.
basically, if I import here, if I import a proxy, so basically it's working. So I can replace my sheets with a proxy. So the first.map is still okay, and here I use the proxy, and this proxy here, in fact, so it doesn't change anything. I have a proxy, but I have something which is proxy.working. So basically, this tells me if some of the cells, and this is the best pattern. So usually, if we have time to discuss this, so the best pattern is to create one sheet alone for the single app, but then each component or each, let's say, group of component should have its own proxy.
Okay.
If you have a set of components that work together, they can share a proxy, because the proxy enables to easily delete all the cells that were created in the proxy. And there's also a working. So basically, yeah, I'll try to log like this.
That I think
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it can.
it's a
It
syntax
can.
error.
Yeah. Of course. Sorry. Yeah. And okay, here. It can just not be cloned, but it's here.
If you, yeah, exactly. If you open,
Yeah, and you see here you have working, and basically you can wait, for instance, to see if it's pending, and you have a value which here it's not working, but it was working where it was printed.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but basically you can ask for working dot value and see if it's busy or not. And yeah, but probably there's more things. If you think of any features that could be useful, so that's feel free to create issues and
Yeah, absolutely.
ask for them.
And obviously, like anyone watching, if you go, like if you take this library for a spin, I left the link in the I left the link in the chat. So I will probably update also the description. So you can find the link in the description or in the chat, and feel free to take the library for a spin, give it a star, and open issue, because every maintainer would love to have as much issue as possible to make their library better.
Exactly, and our main goal is to make it fully bug free and make sure that even in corner use case that we didn't think of, it's working. So that would be rock solid and hopefully a good public good for the community. And we benefited a lot from Svelte, so it's time to give back.
Yeah, thank you. And this is the best approach to everything, in my opinion. Thank you very much, Henry, for your presentation, and we can I will salute you, and I will see you around in the Svelte Discord.
Okay, perfect. See you soon.
Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Okay, I'm adding back my screen because now we can move to the next part of this week in Svelte, and it should be the discussion, but we don't have a discussion. But I have a very cool question and answer for you, and specifically the question that I want to answer, hopefully, is how do I test component with vtest while running on mount? Because this was something that was very there is an issue that is, I don't know, very old in the vtest, specifically in the Svelte testing library for Svelte library. Yeah, I can speak. The testing library for Svelte repo. Again, it's a very old It's a very old issue, and because there was this problem where basically like on mount was not called during component rendering. So I don't know if you know about this. There is testing library, Svelte testing library, which is um, like some of you may like know that this is a testing library for Svelte. It's kind of the de facto testing library. And basically, like they give you this render method where you can pass a component, pass the props, and they render virtually your component for you. And you can perform test on it with vtest, which is super fast, super cool, very interesting. But it was this. It had this problem, and as you can see, like it's almost an year with a bunch of comments and back and forth. Because the problem is that they never like if you try to do these, mounted will never lock, and it took a lot of time actually to realize why. And basically, the problem was that they were running, and it was not actually Svelte testing library fault. Basically, like vtest was running these in a server environment, and in a server environment, there's no on mount. Like on mount is literally an op. And so this was the problem because basically like when was like this library was resolving on mount, it was getting back a no operation, and so they didn't know how to fix this. But there was a bunch of like there were some way to do it, like for example you could mock a Svelte import with Svelte internal. Svelte internal is something that is not even typed. Like there's no, like if you try to search for Svelte internal, it will actually give you a type error. But in general, don't use Svelte internal because there's no guarantee that this will be stable. Like it may break your app every day. They do a new release and your app break. So don't use it. In testing, maybe it's a bit more like usable, but it is always iffy to do it. There were some other, like you can put a custom resolve for like if the environment was test, you can find Svelte and replace with node modules svelte index.mjs. Yeah, like all these methods were kind of iffy, and no one of these methods, as you can see, I also commented on this. No one of these methods was actually really working until yesterday, because I also want to give a shout out to Mekos because he did a wonderful job. Like he did a pretty thorough like research on this. And basically like the reason is why this was happening is because vtest basically have these so intentionally add a node condition to resolve dot condition, which is a vit configuration basically. Vit plugin svelte add svelte as a condition, and so this basically means okay, if you want to resolve a module, go look into the Svelte file, like in the Svelte field of the exports, or in the export field of the exports because of Node. But we also want browser, which basically will act as if it was on the client side. And so like they actually gave these solution, like resolve condition, you can see if mode is equal test and add this browser. And actually like this works and it's good, but actually I think a better solution is one that Dominic provided. Dominic is one of the Svelte maintainers. And it's just to write a simple Vit plugin, right? I'm glossing over this because I will actually show you how to do it. Also because I think it's interesting. to see how to set up vtest to work with Svelte testing library. So first thing first, obviously you need to install something. From a repository from scratch, you need to actually install bot where it is at testing library Svelte, and this is basically like the library that provides you with this render method. So you can import add testing library from Svelte, and you also have this screen method, and from the screen you can actually like query for stuff. So in this case, I want to render this test component. I render the test component, and then I can do screen.getByText, and I can get the test that I want. And I can expect that the test is in the document. Once, like some small bit that is very interesting. So first thing first, inside the Vite config, which is the one where you can configure Vite, basically, you need to, again, as we've seen, add this Vite plugin on mount. This is something that you can write yourself. Like there's no actual Vite plugin on mount, but it's very simple, as you can see. And basically what you need to do is provide this config function. This will get past the Vite config, so you can actually modify the Vite config. You can check if you are inside vtest. So basically this plugin will actually do nothing in your production build, which is good. And you can check for process.env.vtest, and then it's just basic, like I just checking if config.resolve.condition is false to give them a basic, like, because this can actually be undefined. So if this is undefined, I add a new empty object. If config.resolve.condition is undefined, I add a new empty array, and then I put here unshift browser. So I add browser to the beginning of the array. Doing that, you just add the plugin here, and that's it. But it's not actually it, because the other thing that you need to add is this setup file. And the only reason you need to add those is because you need to do these, and I will show you. So this is pointing to a file inside your application. In this case, is this test setup. And as you can see, like here, I'm not doing much. I'm just importing this. And by importing these, basically and this is kind of like, you also need to import, like to install this library, which is kind of strange because you need to import testing library /jest DOM for a vtest. Like you may say, I don't need to use jest, but you need this library too, because they have a /vtest export that will basically give you all those. I want to show you, because if I comment this one and I go back to the test, like to be in the document is not there. So this is just adding some useful stuff to basically query and expect something to be in the document. And you have other stuff like, so if I do this and I save again, there are other stuff like to be visible, to be in viewport, and something like that. Viewport, there is no to be viewport, to be checked, to be some stuff like that. Like you can query basically HTML. You can query HTML basically, and that's not it. So I'm sorry, like setting up everything is not super straightforward. So what this setup does is add all those methods basically to the expect. And the last thing that you need to do in your test is set up the environment. So basically, like vtest by default will run with a node environment, but you can actually tell vtest, okay, hey, run this with HappyDOM. And HappyDOM is a virtualized DOM. You have two kinds, like you have either JSDOM or HappyDOM. HappyDOM is a tad faster, but it's less complete. JSDOM is more complete, but it's a bit more heavy. And you can set up these per file like this, so that if you have other files that don't need HappyDOM, other files will run with node environment, basically. Or you can also set up globally, like you can do here, you can do environment, and then you can choose between those environments. So you can basically tell, okay, run all your tests in Edge, or in AppDom, or in JSDOM, or in Node. The default is Node. Obviously, sorry to say, but you also need to install HappyDOM, which is an extra dependency. Those are all dev dependencies, so don't worry. And after doing all of these, finally, we can test these very stupid component, because it's only using onMount to console log onMount and up this X variable. But by doing this, we can finally, after years of waiting, use vtest to actually test that our component onMount actually work. And I want to show you that if I remove this plugin, so I can do this and remove this plugin, this will not work anymore. This is failing because there's no onMount, there's no X shown. And I also want to show you, like, it's just for, like, if I remove these setup files, this will also fail, should fail. Maybe I should relaunch it. Yeah, I guess so. This will fail because to be in the document is not defined. So every step that I show you, it's required. Unfortunately, you need to reload vtest because obviously it loads once the expect. So every step that I show you is to be required. I will link to the repo that is present. Like, I actually put these on a repo. I might move these on another repo, like this week in Svelte repo. I did not do this because I had to to update the dependency of the repo. So we have to do a bit of like maintainer work, but you will find these either here on the or on the This Week in Svelte repo. After all of this, I think that's it. And I think we can gladly everybody enjoy your weekend. And thank you very much for showing up and for listening to me ramble. But you got something because you got Henry library to at least have knowledge of. So thank you, everyone. Bye-bye, and see you next week.